we'll start with the big news that happened with WWE just a couple nights ago. Unfortunately, more cuts are happening here in WWE. We got Hit Row, Tegan Nox, Drake Maverick, Shane Thorne, among a couple others. Why does this keep happening? Why are we still having these conversations about WWE releases?
What do you mean? The reason this is happening has been well documented. It's because of budget constraints and such.
Yes,
there's some type of financial hardship over at the old WWE, from what people are saying.
I mean, yes, I get it, and I understand why these budget cuts have to happen, because there's just, like, think about it. They released 82 wrestlers this year alone.
Yeah.
82. And that's enough for 2 promotions probably to start up right now. And they still have people they can't put on television.
Yeah. It's difficult for me because I think as much as we want to speculate, we really don't know the true reason. And there's a couple of different things you can look at. Of course, you can kind of just assume that maybe they're telling the truth, that there is some type of financial reason that they are doing this. I don't necessarily buy it. The one thing that I will say is this. I know a lot of people always point to record profits, record revenues, all those types of things. And just like when we talk about, people commenting on the viewership and all of those types of things, unless you truly have an understanding for that type of stuff, don't just regurgitate the talking point that you see people tweeting out continuously.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to argue it from like a morality standpoint, okay, they shouldn't be releasing people, or you would hope they wouldn't be releasing people during a pandemic, or you wouldn't hope that they would re-sign somebody just to lead them on and then cut them, or in Hit Row's circumstances there, where they were brought up, essentially drafted and almost made to be like a big deal just to get released. That's something I can buy. But if you don't necessarily have an understanding of financials, a P&L statement, an income statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow statement, and you don't know how to read those things, you shouldn't just be saying, oh, well, record profits, record revenue, because the problem with that stuff, unless it's the cash flow statement, it can all be fake. And people can speak to that have an actual financial background, I should say. But don't let that just be something that you use as like a crutch. I think that people have a right to kind of to question it from like a moral standpoint, because I really can't. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it. I've had different types of thoughts behind it, and every time I think I have it figured out, I'm wrong. One of the things that I was thinking was, okay, well, and you've talked about this before too. Are they just getting rid of certain people that they view as, a little on the older side, that were more popular on the indie scene, and they just want to free up space for some people that are coming up, like a Braun Breaker? I don't know. I don't know the direction they're going with this.
No, I think they're still going that route. And I think really, you got to really approach this like they are a professional sports team. They are freeing up cap spaces. They basically are, they know they have to re-sign or try to re-sign Kevin Owens. There's a report that they made a huge offer on Johnny Gargano. 2024 is going to happen, and MJF is going to be available. There's going to be a bidding war for him, whether or not you want to believe he might go to WWE or not. It's still a possibility with him. And I see people in the comments saying, the releases aren't even 1% of their budget. Their whole entire budget doesn't revolve around their entire revenue. They might have a budget for talent payroll that is just way above what they should be paying. Like, this is the problem. The problem isn't that they're releasing people. The problem is they got to a point where they have to release people. There's just way too many people on the roster. That's the problem.
And Eric Bischoff touched on this too. And I'm not saying anybody has to agree with this, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with it. But at the end of the day, the difference between AEW and WWE and other even smaller promotions compared to WWE is philosophically, they are just different. WWE is like a Disney World. They are huge in comparison to some of the other promotions, and they are publicly traded. And the main thing that they are trying to justify or they are trying to do is they, as Eric Bischoff said, they have a fiduciary responsibility to please certain people that hold stock within that company. And they, unfortunately, sometimes they have to do certain things to please the stockholders. And, people may not necessarily like that, but unfortunately, that is what it is. They're not making decisions based on what they think is going to please the IWC. They're making decisions based on who is going to please their stockholders and the people that are investing money in the company. Because assuming that it is true that they are making the revenue that they are making, and again, I say that because they are saying that, but again, revenue numbers and profit numbers, those can be fudged and those can lie. Think of Enron. Enron essentially did that. If they are truly making those numbers, that's what's going to matter to those people.
Right. And I just want to say something before we move on. Comments like this is why AEW is going to win the war. Enough. No. No. There's no war. They're not competing against each other on the same night like it was in the 90s. There's no war. There's no, we're going to, cause someone to go out of business. Stop. That's a fan-created bullcrap statement. These wars are non-existent. It's a fan-created thing. Stop with the war comments. There's no war. None whatsoever. I'm sorry. No war. Now, you want to say they're competing for talent? Sure. But literally, you could watch Dynamite on Wednesday, Raw on Monday, NXT on Tuesday, SmackDown on Friday, and you could be the same person watching all four of those shows and support both promotions. There's no war.
I'm glad you brought that point up because that's one of the things I've said from the very beginning. Maybe not, what we see on TV going head to head and things of that nature. That's not necessarily a war, but where there may be some type of pseudo war is where, when it comes to talent, if there becomes a free agent that is a mega, it happened with Adam Cole. WWE essentially was trying to sign him, trying to coerce him to stick with them, and AEW ultimately signed him. That is where if there's any competition between the two, in my opinion, that's where the biggest competition is, because talent, as they get out of their contracts, as people become free agents, that is where you're going to start to see this quote unquote war as they kind of compete for this talent and getting these people under contract. And the reason I bring that up, and I'm glad you mentioned it, is this. When you think about this, or if I'm going to try to wrap my head around why WWE is releasing so many people, if you look at AEW and you look at all the other promotions, the one thing that we can confidently assume is budget-wise, WWE, just because they've been around for so long and because of some of the partnerships and things that they have in place, they have a lot of cash that they can throw around. Now, throw around and throw that at people and try to sign some of that younger talent.
Right.
AEW right now, just the company itself, I'm not talking about Tony Khan because unfortunately people want to talk, oh, he's a billionaire. Yes, I get it. That's not how businesses typically work. You don't just have a billionaire who just continues to fund people out of his pocket. A company has to be able to sustain itself based on the revenue it's bringing in, the cash that it's able to generate, and then they use that cash to then pay said employees. That's very different than just having a billionaire throwing money into a company.
Right. Now,
hang on. Let me finish this thought. Assume this, or this would be my only other thought process. Is WWE essentially letting some of these talents go, knowing that some of these smaller promotions are going to use that money to sign somebody like whoever it may be? Because when these other people do become free agents, like an MJF or somebody like that, maybe WWE is positioning themselves for the future so they can make a really big cash offer to somebody like that. And again, I know people are going to be like, oh, they'd never sign. This is wrestling. People go back and forth from promotion to promotion. They always have, aside from like maybe 3 or 4 big name guys like Undertaker or something. Even him, he went back and forth. Granted, it wasn't The Undertaker, but it still happened. So
right.
That's maybe their thought process, and that's my only thought as to why they continue to let people go like that.
Honestly, they know the value of or at least they feel the value of the person does not meet the return on investment. And that's the budget cut right there. That's it. For anybody that wants a full in-depth, like you're not going to explain that to the person you just fired because they don't want to hear that anyway. That's the thing. They don't want to hear it anyway. Tell them budget cuts, okay, whatever. They don't see my value, I'm out. Do what Drake Maverick did. That was an amazing video. That was amazing. It really was. It was awesome. And also John Morrison was one that was released too. So I know a lot of people were upset with that. And his wife, Frankie Monet, Taya Valkyrie, had some very emotional things to say about that, basically saying that they don't care about their talent. They don't care about their fans. And I understand that. But I mean, they don't care, like they're not going to care about you specifically, but as long as people are paying, that's all they care about. And that's just business. And when people say that, and I understand like, it's not just business. Some people say as a rebuttal, it's like, unfortunately it is just business. It's not a personal thing. It's just, they feel that person is just not a return on investment and they're cutting their losses. Now you brought up Tony Khan, and I do want to bring up a quote that he said. He was on Busted Open Radio this week and was asked about MJF because he brought up the whole bidding war in 2024 and asked if he knew about that. He did say, yes, I knew he was going to say that. He's been saying it for a long time. I have no problem with it. I signed him to a 5-year deal. He has 3 years left, so there's going to be a bidding war for him in 2024, and he's fine with that. But then he addressed the cuts. And here's what he had to say about that. Anyone who signs a contract in WWE these days is not signing a real contract. It's a temporary arrangement. People who come wrestle with me, a lot of these people are frankly lifers, and they know that. There are some people who are here who work really hard, and there are some people who come in and work more than really hard, I feel like is their actual life, and will be there with me for the rest of my life. I don't know if everybody who works for my competition can say that. I think there are people who work there and they aren't sure they will be there next week. There's a lot more security with the contract here. I can't say I'm going to extend every contract and bring every person back, but I also haven't been doing massive layoffs. I'm not the most profitable company of all time, and I don't brag about being the most profitable company of all time. I do brag about being in a lot of revenue for a startup company and being a real success story. What I bring about this, we haven't been doing these mass layoffs, and we haven't fired 15 people last week and 8 people the week before that. It's not something to be proud of when a company lets all those people go. You're putting press releases out like that frequently. I don't think it's a good thing. Ralph, I agree with TK on this. I really do. Is he profiting as much as he should? Probably not. But the guys he's paying for are within his budget, and he's using them. And I think his return on investment is what he feels is okay. And it's working for him right now.
Yep. I agree with some of what he said, and I think of some of what he said. I think sometimes he says too much, and he needs to be careful the way that he says things, because when he goes out there and says something like, I'm trying to make people lifers, or whatever the way however he phrased it about keeping people under contract for life. And AEW right now has been really successful, but AEW still, to me, is still very much in their honeymoon stage. They're still very young by comparison to other companies that have had success in the wrestling industry. They're still very young in comparison to the biggest company right now, WWE. Now, if WWE is making the money that they're making, the revenue and the profit and all that type of stuff, again, you have the right to question that from a moral standpoint. But Tony Khan going out there and saying that he's going to keep these people as lifers and all that type of stuff, that's great, but that's also under the assumption that you still are turning a profit and that you still are generating revenue.
And these people want to resign when their contracts are up too.
And we don't know if AEW is going to run into a point where, people lose interest, or they book the wrong thing, or they come across some type of hardship where they're not generating enough revenue to pay certain. Because let's be honest here, when you have guys like Sammy Guevara, when you have guys like Darby Allin, guys on their 4 pillars, those guys eventually will become free agents, and you may have to make the choice. Okay, do I throw a big contract at this guy? Do I re-sign this guy? Do I have to let this guy go essentially to free up some, let's call it cap room, or free up some money to pay somebody else? Tony Khan hasn't necessarily been in that position yet, luckily, and good for him. But you got to think, just like every other business, there's ups and downs, and that time may come. So for him to go out there and say, like, I'm going to make guys lifers, I hope he can, because I love AEW and I want them to be successful. But those words, if he's not as successful as they have been, can certainly come back to bite him for going out there and saying something like that. So I don't disagree with the statement. I just think that sometimes he can choose his words a little more wisely, where he gets himself into trouble sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely think sometimes he reacts emotionally, and basically like anybody else on social media, they comment emotionally and not logically. And I think, like, in this comment here, I think this is probably him being the most, at least, or the least emotional he can be about things he's commented on. Like, he's not going out on Twitter and like, oh, you're going to go up against my show, I can't wait to beat you. That's emotional, Tony. That's social media tweeting people, like, out of emotion. But the releases, like, I think all contracts in theory are temporary arrangements, because they have an expiration. It's not like you're an employee at will where you just work and work and work until either A, you quit, or B, they let you go for whatever reason that may be. So that's part of the independent contractor thing. So, and I think, Mario Morales in our live chat brought up a great point. This happens in pro sports all the time. It happens in the NFL. People get cut as soon as their guaranteed contracts are out. They get cut before training camp. They get cut before the NFL season starts. It happens all the time in pro sports. And people get laid off too. We live in Connecticut. How many times have you heard ESPN have massive layoffs despite being owned by Disney, who has even more money than WWE, so much that people think they're going to buy WWE?
Yeah, and again, I really don't fault people for questioning it from a morale standpoint, because again, if you're an employee, unless you're Roman, if you're a mid-card guy or lower mid-card guy, I'm sure that you feel like you could essentially be released at any moment. And somebody just commented on that. That does not necessarily make for a good work environment or a good atmosphere. And right now, I wouldn't be comfortable with a position in WWE if I'm a mid-card or lower mid. I guess even somebody that's even prominent on TV, because John Morrison was on TV for quite a while there, and so.
Unless you're Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, or Seth Rollins, or Becky Lynch, or Charlotte Flair. I think like those five are the only 100% absolute safe. And even then, like, if you believe any of the difficult comments about Charlotte Flair, is she even safe? But, unfortunately, this stuff does happen. It's a business. But, one of the people that was released was Miro. And he had some things to say recently on a podcast. Talking about former WWE talent going to AEW and, being that as a criticism against AEW. But he said guys like him, or guys like Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Moxley, they already made a name for themselves in the independents even before WWE. And for him, God made me, not Vince McMahon. Yeah. Your thoughts?
Some kayfabe mixed in again with some overreaching, in my opinion. WWE,
a little bit.
The kayfabe part obviously is him still, and good for him, still saying, God made me, which, that's a part of the Redeemer gimmick or character or whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, were they popular on the independent scene? Yes, absolutely they were. And the one thing I would say about that is being really good on the independent scene doesn't necessarily guarantee you success at the higher levels like this. Could have happened. They could have just went straight from the independent scene straight to AEW and been as popular and as successful. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they would have been signed to such lucrative contracts and given certain opportunities had they not given the time to perform on the WWE stage. So, I think Miro should be thankful that he did get the opportunity to work for WWE, because if I'm Tony Khan, it's a lot easier to sign somebody that's already established than going and signing some guy in the independent scene that essentially you're taking a risk on. So
that's the same thing about WWE and kind of their approach right now is they try getting names from the independent scene to make them TV ready and make them superstars. And just the plan just didn't work. Whether it was bad creative or guys just not connecting with the audience or Vince McMahon being out of touch, whatever the case may be, it just didn't work. Those that they kind of just took from different aspects of the entertainment world and made them professional wrestlers have worked out better. Like they've done better with Alexa Bliss than they had Ember Moon. They've done better with Carmella than they had, a Tegan Knox. They've done better with, a Roman Reigns than they did with Shinsuke Nakamura. And that's just how it is. And Miro actually was a guy that, to my knowledge, didn't really work any independent. He was one of those guys that WWE made, and he had a pretty good run in WWE. Could have been better. I think everyone can admit that. But I think that run helped him become who he is in AEW, and Tony Khan just took it to the next level. And that's really what helped.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that, philosophically, WWE is going to try and get their own guys over as long as they fit their mold. And, AEW is certainly geared more towards getting guys that are going to work more of that independent style.
Yeah, I totally agree. But, I see a few people in the comments here. Once, let's see, one saying that Carmella's second generation. Yes, I understand that. Another one saying, honestly, when you think about it, the reason why a lot of these independent stars don't work out is because Vince McMahon is trying to make everybody do the exact same thing, and you can't. That's true. I've said that before.
It's not just about independent guys not working out. There's been a lot of high-profile guys that have come to WWE, and it hasn't worked out. And guys have gone from WWE to WCW back in the day. It didn't work out. Bret Hart was probably the biggest free agent to jump ship back in the 90s. And would you say that he had a successful run in WCW? Probably not. Scott Steiner came over from WCW to WWF at the time, or maybe it was WWE by then. He wasn't necessarily successful. He didn't have a great transition. DDP didn't have a great transition. It's just
True.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And some of these guys like Miro go from WWE and he's found his thing. He's found his it factor there, which is great. Some guys went from WCW to WWE and it worked out, like The Undertaker. It is what it is. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. Some guys just find the right place where they can be the person that they want to be and it clicks.
Yep. That's very true. We talk about AEW, we talk about WWE and former guys going here and, guys going there or whatever, and this forbidden door. Well, Big E's been doing some interviews lately, promoting Survivor Series, and he talked about the forbidden door on a recent podcast, and he wants it open for WWE and AEW. He thinks it would be incredible. Ralph, I know people asked us last week about a AEW versus WWE Survivor Series, and the fact that Survivor Series has no build to it whatsoever. Well, I shouldn't say whatsoever, because they did do some build with Big E and Roman, and they've done some build with Becky and Charlotte, but the rest of the show is just the one night of the year where both brands challenge for brand supremacy or whatever the stupid thing is.
Did anybody give you any credit when you said that Becky and Charlotte was essentially a work, which...
No.
Becky killed it, by the way. She did that interview. Was that with Ariel Helwani?
Yep. Ariel Helwani, she said that something. Was that the one where she talked about how there should be stakes, even if it's for a banana? Was that same interview?
This was the one. I saw a little clip of it where she was saying that she was talking about how she went and back and just how the whole thing transpired. And you know why it was good? Because it wasn't a freaking pro wrestling promo.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I don't like you. You don't like me. I'm a champion. You're a champion. You disrespected me. And that's why sometimes you need that realism and not just guys going out there and cutting, or in this case, girls, but going out there cutting promos on one another with the same talking points, with the same delivery and the same tonality and all that crap. But anyway, back to your point.
Right. So we talked about a AEW versus WWE Survivor Series last week. I think someone donated to the Super Chat Party with a question on that. Maybe this is where they go. If this ever were to happen, Maybe this is how you build up Survivor Series for 2022 and make it WWE versus AEW for Survivor Series. And that's just like pro wrestling's all-star game, because that's how I feel Survivor Series is right now. It's an all-star game. That's why they don't build it like other pay-per-views, because the story is just, here's an exhibition between these two guys from different brands that you don't normally see because they're on different brands.
Yeah, and it's likely not going to go anywhere after that. I mean, even some of the matches that you've had on Survivor Series that were really good and that you thought they were going to revisit down the line, they don't always do that. So,
right. Right. Well, if you guys want to see AEW versus WWE in some form, Supercard or something, give us a like on this video right now. We're at 18 likes right now. Let's try to get that up. We need that like button up because that helps spread this video around and get us, more push. And the more push that we get and the more, interest we see in this, the more we'll do these kind of shows like this. And of course, at the end of our predictions for Survivor Series, we will do a Q&A. Donate to the Super Chat party to get your question answered. But Ralph, let's talk about Full Gear. Now, we made predictions last week, but we didn't do a review. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason we didn't do a review was because we were one of the many misfortune that had issues with Bleacher Report, and we're waiting for the re-air to happen and be available on Bleacher Report, but I got impatient. I got pissed off. So I asked for a refund. They gave it to me, and then I didn't end up getting it at all until about like 5 o'clock at night when I finally bought it on Fight TV, which is much better of a service than Bleacher Report. And if you ever want to order a pay-per-view on Fight TV, click the link in the description for any of our videos. We have an affiliate link there that helps, you get what you want, helps kick us back and support this channel so we could do more content for you guys. So, so we figured let's do a little review here because Dave Meltzer has brought his star ratings out. So, Ralph, I figure we do a little over-under. You want to play a little over-under?
Yeah,
we'll go.
Definitely with this.
So, I'll give you Dave Meltzer's star rating, and we'll tell you should it be over, under, or did he rate it right? Now, the first match, the opening match, Darby Allin versus MJF. Everyone praised this match from the beginning. I mean, this was an incredible match. I thought it was the match of the night, and I think this is a match that, if you're talking about the four pillars and the future about this, this definitely helps with the future of AEW. Be like, see that, guys? That's where the future of AEW is going to be, and that's great. Dave Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars. Over, under.
Over. Simply for the simple fact, like you said, I thought this was the best match of the night, and it wasn't rated the highest, at least by him. So I'm saying it should be.
I definitely say higher too, and I'm making a bold statement here, Ralph. Making a bold statement, but I think this belongs in the best opening match conversation with Brett and Owen and Triple H and Bryan Danielson. Frick, Jim Ross gets it messed up. All other podcasters mess up. I mess up too. Bryan Danielson, Bryan. There we go. Bryan Danielson.
Yep. No, I agree. I thought this was a very, very good match. I definitely thought it was the match of the night, depending on what you were looking for. And I was surprised that it wasn't rated. I shouldn't say it wasn't rated high, because it was rated highly. I felt like it should have been rated a little higher by comparison to some of the other matches that were rated higher.
Right. No, it definitely was. And we're going to talk about that. But the next match, Penta and Rey Fenix versus Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood for the AEW Tag Championship. I thought this was a really good match. The finish was stupid. And I think a lot of people could agree with that. So stupid.
Overbooked.
I mean, it just goes to show you how bad of a ref Rick Knox is, because he couldn't even figure out, like, yes, I understand Cash Wheeler was wearing a mask and couldn't figure out the two. And yes, I heard that Dax Harwood got hurt, and that's why the finish happened the way it did. But I think I did not like the finish of this match. Dave Meltzer gave it 4.25. I think that's a fair I think that's a fair mark. 4.25, I think, is a fair mark there.
I don't know. I felt like the match was good and had good moments. I felt like it was a little long. I think the end was definitely convoluted. I felt like there were definitely too many moments where the rules weren't being enforced as usual. I think it should have been. I put under. I wouldn't have even made this a 4-star match, to be honest.
Really?
That's me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, again, we go back to, there's too many times where the ref is made to look foolish by these guys not following the rules, and it's just blatant. Like, okay, well, you're just going to allow them to do the spot. And
it's funny because the tag match on Dynamite this week with Dante Martin, Lio Rush, they actually enforced, like Rick Knox actually enforced tag rules there. So it's like he picks and chooses based on who's in the match. It's like, well, the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks are in, so I'm just going to have amnesia on how, I'm just going to have amnesia about tag rules, but anywhere else, I'm actually going to enforce them like they should be. But I thought, other than the finish, it was pretty good. I will say there was a part talking about tag rules where, like early on when AEW first started, we saw Ray and Penta high-five each other when they're both in the ring, and they called it a tag. That same thing happened in this match. It wasn't as obvious because they didn't show it on camera, but if like you look quick enough, they did the same thing, and it counted as a tag. But yeah, I think if you want to go, I don't think it's definitely higher, but I think 4.25 is decent. But I guess if you want to go lower, I could see why. But next match, Bryan Danielson, whatever his name is, against Miro. Winner gets the AEW Championship match. This was a very good match, and the way both of them should be presented, as Miro gets as a dominant heel, monster heel, and Daniel Bryan is a great wrestler, but is still the underdog due to his size. And I thought this was a really, really good match. The finish made sense with the whole DDT to the guillotine. I think Aubrey Edwards was the ref in this match. Or no, excuse me. I think it was Bryce Remsburg. I think he could have gone a little bit slower going to the bell, because I think as soon as Bryan Danielson hit the submission, he went for the bell. I think that was way too fast. But I thought this was a really good match, a really good story. Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars. I agree with that. I think that is a solid rating for that one. If you want to go 4.75, yeah. And I wouldn't even argue against 5.
Oh, 5 stars. It was a good match, but I mean, again,
I said I wouldn't argue against it if someone thought it was a 5-star. I don't agree with it, but I could see if someone thought.
By comparison to some of the matches that he's given 5 stars to, and let's just say like over the course of how many years, I don't know. I guess what he rated it, I thought was pretty fair. I don't know if I would say 5 was the cutoff at one point, correct? Meaning that's the best you can get. I've seen better matches than this.
Yeah.
I think 4.5, anywhere between 4.5 would have been appropriate.
Right. Now, let's talking about 5-star matches. The next match got 5 stars, and that was a Jurassic Express with Christian Cage against Adam Cole, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. We saw Jungle Boy become Jungle Man. We saw a lot of car crash wrestling in this one. This one, I think, is definitely under 5 stars. Now, if he's rating it based on other no disqualification matches, I don't think it's at the same par as the parking lot brawl from last year.
Right? Didn't he say he couldn't? Oh no, that was wasn't there a
the non-sanctioned match with Moxley and Omega? I think he said he couldn't rate because it was noticed. I forget the reasoning, but I think he said something along the lines of because it was so whatever, he didn't rate it.
Okay. So you're just going to say below, I'd imagine, with this.
Yes, I agree. It was a good match, but
I almost feel like he's deliberately trolling people by making it 5 stars because the Bucks, because he knows the reaction he's going to get. But
that's what I think it is.
This was not a 5-star match. I mean, even by comparison to other non-disqualification, hardcore type match, I mean, this was depending on what you're looking for, I guess you could have really enjoyed this, but there's no way in my mind that I would ever consider this a 5-star match.
Right. Now, I correct me if I'm wrong, because the article that I'm using doesn't have these matches in order. Was CM Punk and Kingston next, or was it the tag match next? I think it was the tag match, right?
I don't remember.
Well, we'll do the tag match next, and I think that is what's next. And someone can, let me know in the comments section. This is what happens when you have to restart your computer last minute and you're flustered and don't have everything in your ducks in a row, unfortunately. But tag match got 4 stars. Cody Rhodes, Pac, Malachi Black, Andrade El Idolo. This is one of those matches where I think they just put these guys on the card because they had to put these guys on the card. And Cody just... I want to say this is a storyline, but I really feel like Cody's just a delusional babyface. Like when people say, "Oh, WWE shoved Cena down our throats and Roman down our throats," Cody's shoving himself down our throats. I feel like now. Why did they win this match? Why?
Couldn't tell you. Really couldn't tell you. I also couldn't tell you why it got 4 stars. Do you think 4 stars was a 4-star match?
No, not at all. I think 3.5 max.
Yeah, I mean, again, good match, I guess, but
well, they set up for the hot tag with Cody and it got no response. He got the tag and was like, nothing. Dead silence.
Well, the crowd was silent for some matches where I thought they were going to pop. But again, I think most of the matches were 15, 20-minute matches where, again, do they really need to all be this long? But
and this match, I think this match was 18 minutes. This match did not need to be 18 minutes.
Yeah.
This match could have been done in 9.
A lot of the matches.
This match could have been 9 minutes and it would have been much more effective. But the
next match that we're going to talk about was one of the shorter matches.
It was the shortest match.
Okay, it was the shortest match, but to me, it had maybe the most emotion and was put together. And just goes to show you, you don't need to have 15, 20-minute matches to put on a good performance.
Right. I totally agree. And, let's talk about CM Punk and Eddie Kingston because that's the next match on here. The shortest match of the night, easily. But it was the most effective, I thought. I watched this match and I was like, damn, they got right to the point. CM Punk didn't do his big entrance. He ran right into the ring. They do let's get, face to face. Kingston sucker punches him. And then it was off to the races. And they built the story of Kingston being out of shape into this match. And that's why he was winded. Only goes 11 minutes. And CM Punk does get the win. This match goes 4.5 stars. I think it should be higher. I honestly think this was a 5-star match, despite it only being 11 minutes.
I would have said, 4.5 is good, is appropriate. And again, I'm using a scale of 1 to 5, thinking 5 is the best you can get. This was a good match. But again, I feel like I've seen better matches. 4.5, 4.75. I don't know if I wouldn't say 5, but it was a good match.
I don't know. I think it needed everything it needed to be. It was timed right. It told a good story. If you think Eddie should have won instead of CM Punk, I could see where maybe you don't give it a full 5 stars, but I thought it was just well done. I thought it really was.
Thoughts of the 5-knuckle shuffle.
Oh, that was a great troll job by CM Punk. And just because that people were saying the story was that CM Punk became Cena and Kingston became CM Punk. Obviously, great storytelling there.
Yeah.
So, and the crowd woke up with this match because, there was a couple where it just felt like the crowd was dead. And then this match happened and the crowd came back up. The next match we'll talk about is the women's championship match, Britt Baker versus Ty Conti. This one, I think, went almost 15 minutes. This one, I think, could have been a little shorter, too. I think Ty looked really good in this match. But I'll admit, as I said last week in our prediction show, this match shouldn't have happened. This should have been Jade Cargill's match. And because of that, I had no interest in it. And despite that, they pulled out a good match. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars, and I think that was a solid one. You knew Britt Baker was going to win. They gave you an entertaining match. The crowd just unfortunately wasn't into it because I think they knew Ty Conti wasn't going to win. But I didn't really see anything that was like egregiously bad, but I didn't see anything that was like, oh my God, this match is awesome either. So 3.5, I think, is a well rating for that one.
Yeah, I think 3.5 is a good rating. Despite it being a little long, it was good.
Right. Now, the next match was the Minneapolis Street Fight. Meltzer gave it 4 stars. This match was nearly 20 minutes, and the first, I want to say 5 to 8 minutes was not even street fight stuff yet. They were doing everything in the ring. I was like, this is a street fight, right? Like, why are we tagging in? Why are there no weapons? What the heck is this? And then they finally get stuff going. You have Baron Von Raschke giving the claw to Ethan Page. So once again, Ethan Page looks stupid and doesn't help his cause. And, this whole feud, which should have helped Santana and Ortiz and the Men of the Year, they were just back burner and part of the joke. And a great tribute to Eddie Guerrero, as we saw a few of these throughout the night. But this was, Jericho being a close friend of Eddie Guerrero in the city that he passed away on the anniversary, which I don't know if that was just ironic or what, but freaky that happened. But great tribute with Jericho there. I'm not giving this 4 stars. I'm not even giving it 3 stars. I thought this was 2 stars.
Yeah, this was now we're talking about matches up by the 4 stars and again, just the rating scale, if it is based on 1 through 5. I didn't see anything in this match that was like, oh my God, that was, there was cool spots, but a well-worked match? No, I'm sorry. This isn't 4 stars.
Right. No, I agree. Now, the final match, the main event, the match everybody paid to see, the culmination of Hangman Page finally winning the AEW championship. I thought this was well done. I thought it was a really good match. We finally got the story finished and culminated with Hangman. I think the fact that he reversed out of the One Wing Angel and tried to hit Kenny with the One Wing Angel was a nice surprise. And the finish was great where the Bucks kind of gave their approval, like, we're not going to interfere. It's your turn now. Kenny needs to go. Here's your moment. And I love the moment at the end where Hangman smacks the bear out of his hand and out of Alex Reynolds' hand, gives a hug to the rest of the Dark Order. We get that nice, Bret Hart WrestleMania 10 moment where, they hold him up. I thought it was a good match. Do I think it's 5.5 stars, as Meltzer put it? No. There were definitely better matches on this night. This was not the match of the night, and this was not 5.5 stars.
Didn't Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole, didn't they get 5.5 stars?
Yes.
5 stars.
They got, I forget if
that
it was
5.
Like
the highest rated WWE match ever.
Yes, and that was the one at TakeOver, New York, before WrestleMania. I think that was the one that got 5.5.
Okay.
Or was it the one in one of those two? The one in Bridgeport or the one in New York? One of them was over 5 stars. But I did not think this was 5.5 stars. I would say 4 3/4 would be personally my pick for this. I thought it was a very good match, but maybe he gave it a little bit more because of the moment, and that's fine. But as a match itself, that's not 5.5 in my opinion.
Yeah, I've seen 5 what I would feel as 5.5 star matches from Kenny, and this was good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish how good the match was, but at the same time, 5.5 again, breaking the scale, so to speak, which is something that happened just 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Oh, it's been happening. So
it's been happening more and more.
The Bucks and Kenny versus the Bucks versus Kenny and Hangman, that got 6 stars, I think, and that was considered the greatest tag team match of all time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't say 5.5. It was good. I would say anywhere between 4.25, even if you wanted to try and justify 5, I wouldn't even argue with you. But to break the scale, come on.
Right.
If
No,
there
I
is a
agree.
scale anymore, I don't know.
Right.